All right, welcome to another Ember Weekend. I'm Jonathan Jackson.
And I'm Chase McCarthy.
And we are here to talk about Ember News. Ember News. I'm excited. We are broadcasting from Florida and Austin. How's Austin treating you?
Oh, Austin's amazing. Eating so much good food, going to comic book stores.
Wait, I feel like that's such a weird thing for you to going to comic book stores. That's the thing.
There are like 15 tabletop gaming stores
really?
here. Where they're open till midnight. They serve beer and food, and they're just they have free to play games.
Oh,
so
cool.
It's
fun.
amazing here.
That's pretty fun. All right, so I think we have quite a bit to talk about. So let's just dive in.
All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is this add-on called Ember CLI Dependency Lint by Salsify. It seems like the main contributor on this is Dan Freeman. And this app is pretty interesting. It helps kind of debug an issue that you probably didn't know you had. And that's some weirdness that has to do with how Ember CLI deals with multiple add-ons having dependencies, the same add-on dependency, but a different version.
Yeah, so if you have Ember Wormhole 0.3, this is from the README, so you can find out more there. If you have a version of 0.3 and say Power Select is using that, and then Ember Modal Dialog is using 0.5, once it goes through the build pipeline, one of those things is going to ostensibly win, I think, and they end up getting merged into the same folder. So it might work and it might not work.
Yeah, I think what ends up happening is it overwrites one of them. Which worst case is you would have extra files, I guess, or files that somehow get looked up. Because, if one completely overwrites the other ones, nothing else should be importing ones that it didn't have. So I think that's why this isn't a much bigger problem. But it could because of how lookups work. You end up with an extra file that could be used. This example of Wormhole, when I plugged this into an app, like a client app I have, this was the main example. This was the exact same thing that happened to me. I wasn't using Power Select. I was using Power Calendar, and I had used Ember Wormhole. And then there was two other things that were using it. I think Ember Light Table and a couple other things. And they all had different versions. They all had the same version. I had the different version. So the actual fix was for me to just change my version to be that version. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it definitely shows you what's wrong, but there's not necessarily always a way for you to resolve the conflicts, so you kind of know it, and then you're like, wait, how do I fix this?
Yeah, the recommended ways to fix this are kind of weird. The first one's obvious. You're like, oh, well, you just pin your app to be the one that actually makes it work, like I did for the Wormhole. The other one is you fork the project and you use the right one, and then you kind of, I guess, put a PR in and say, hey, can you please change it to be an updated version? Because usually that's probably the issue. So the other case I ran into is Mirage uses a very old version of underscore, not underscore, of Lodash. And I used a very recent version because I needed merge. And so now we're in conflict, and I can't change mine back to be 0.0.2 or 3 or whatever it is because I need merge. So the only solution is for me to ping Sam and say, hey, can you update your version of Lodash? But maybe they can't do that.
Right.
For various reasons. Maybe they're pinned to that for a reason. So you might have to fork the project.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is you just write a lot of tests.
Yeah. But anyways, check this out. This add-on's really cool. It's definitely worth your time to just check some stuff out. So make sure to check it out. So the next thing we're going to talk about is that the Ember Community Survey, which I think this will be the third annual Ember Community Survey, is doing a preview where you can kind of do comments and suggestions on question wording and question options and things like that. Basically, it's like a comment period so that the community survey is as good as it can be. So trying to really refine it from years past. I think last year they had 1,800 people who filled out the survey, and this is all debuted on the keynote for EmberConf, which is coming up. And I think before that it was 800, so I suspect it will be even larger this year, which is pretty cool. And it's 30 questions, and it's basically just trying to gauge where the Ember community is going and where it's been and that sort of thing. So it's really interesting, and there is a blog post by Matthew Beal that has a little bit more details about this and a link to the preview Google Doc where you can actually make suggestions. You should check it out. It's really neat.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see a couple things in here, like the 1.13 usage. How many people are still kind of stuck back then. Things like how many people are using Ember data versus some other solution or rolling their own. Also, the one that was really interesting last year was that it has the sections like average developer experience or something, or I can't remember what it was. Basically, how long have you been a developer? And you could basically look at the year before, like the 2015 survey, and it was like everybody was like 6 months or less, and then like the other one, it was like 2 years, a year or more or something. Like everybody just shifted over. Like it's pretty funny. So I'm thinking that this year there's gonna be a lot of 3-year devs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that'll be cool. It's really neat to see the community survey like transition over time. It's pretty cool. So the next thing we're going to mention is a Dockyard plugin called Ember CLI 1 script. I believe Martin Schilstra did most of the work on this one, and a lot of it was like detective work to figure out ways to improve performance on a fastboot site. I believe Dockyard.com, in fact. And the idea is that because the metric that you really care about is time to first paint, you don't necessarily care if your scripts are loaded before the first paint happens. So you can, since it's sending the HTML over, you can say, okay, listen, I want to combine my JavaScript files into one thing, and then I'm going to tell the browser that tag is async, so it can happen asynchronously while the first paint happens. So what that ends up doing is you get the fastboot content painted faster while the JavaScript loads. Like the JavaScript doesn't block before it actually does the first paint event. So you end up with some speed improvements. Although obviously there are a lot of different trade-offs when you do this sort of thing. So it's interesting. I'm looking forward to more information. I think Martin is working on a blog post to describe the different scenarios.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different scenarios specifically having to do with caching, because the reason of splitting them up is that maybe your add-ons don't change, but your code changed, so you push a change for your code, but everybody still has the vendor stuff cached, which is probably a larger portion of the JavaScript. So there's trade-offs, and I'm sure there's.
Well, this combines the vendor and your app JavaScript together into one script tag.
Right, but the reason why that they were separate is that you could then update your project code without updating your vendor code, and everybody still has the other one cached. So seems like the one major trade-off. The async is, I guess, adds a whole other bag of problems. But yeah, if you're a fastboot app, then you have all the data on the page, so you're fine.
Yeah, it worked really well for Ember Weekend. We saw about a 30% increase in speed to first paint, which is pretty cool. And that was like basically a drop-in thing. It did not require hardly any configuration at all. I had to update the index HTML, and that was it. So it's definitely very, very interesting, and I think there's going to be a lot of discussion around this to see if this is something that can make its way into fastboot app like Ember CLI fastboot.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this could easily just become a flag on the build process, I guess. Other than the fact that you have to mess with your index HTML, everything's pretty automatic. But yeah, it seems really useful.
Yeah, definitely. So check it out, and I think there is going to be a blog post in the next little while, and when that happens, we will be sure to link to that as well.
All right, the next thing we're going to mention is something we found out from Ember this time actually from Ryan. If you were listening last week, we accidentally reported on something we thought was written by Ryan, but it's actually written by Sam Selikov.
Did that actually make it live? I thought we fixed it.
No, I didn't edit it out. I thought it was really funny. So this one, it was a really short video clip, like a couple minutes. But me and John were just talking about this like 5 minutes before we started doing research. And that's that the router service is in Ember Canary now. Which is awesome, because if you've had to do kind of custom routing inside of a component, like in my case, I have some tabs that have to stay they have to stay current with what the active route is, but they're not the ones actually doing the manipulation of the route, like something else on the page is. And so because of that, I need to know what's the current route name so I can match the tabs. And the only way to currently do that was to inject this private routing service and then pull the router off of the routing service. And now this is now public in Canary. Hopefully, I mean, the API is pretty simple, so it shouldn't change much. Basically, you get the transition to, which is, that's the way you change routes. But you also get current URL and current route name. Current route name is the one that I think most people need. And so that's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, totally. So check out the Ember Map video on the routing service. It gives a nice little synopsis of what's going on. And honestly, just check out Ember Map in general. They're pretty cool. Routing service. Yay. And I guess the last thing we're going to mention kind of really quick, because it's probably something we're going to discuss at length next week. And that is we received a fastboot question that neither of us really have put a whole lot of thought into. And that is what fastboot server are we using when we deployed to Heroku for the Ember Weekend site? And I hadn't really looked at it before. And I think we're just using whatever the build pack supplies. But we kind of explored a little bit, and we're going to switch over to using fastboot app server and kind of writing our own custom thing that Heroku will then serve with a proc file. So that's something that we're hoping to do this week? Question mark?
The giving time frames is always dangerous.
Yeah. Soon. But we're noticing some weird like memory leaks in our server that we haven't really explored because it hasn't really caused us any problems. But it's because I think it's because it's an old deploy process. Yeah.
Question. I don't know. It's like
it could be our code too, though. Like our code could just be doing something weird.
Yeah. I mean, the only weird thing our code could be doing is somehow building the RSS feed file at the wrong time or something.
Right.
Which it shouldn't do at all in production, but there's very few things that could cause this thing to like spike in memory like it's doing. But there's some other benefits also to switching the app server. Like right now we don't get gzipping. We have to deploy every time because we have this static. So every time we push a new episode, even though it's just a data change, we have to push the code because there's a static feed.xml file that has to go out with it. And potentially this will let us deal with that route separate. So it'll still just be a regular Ember fastboot deploy, but every week we won't have to deploy because this thing will be pointing to our API server to ask for the feed XML and then like proxying it through. So hopefully that will work. And then there's other cool things you can do, like you can have any Express middleware you want. You like get control over the Express server.
But anyways, that's on the horizon. And thanks to I think Brian Gonzalez for bringing that up. That was it's good that we're looking at it because I think there's better ways for us to do it, and honestly probably not that difficult. I mean, I'm knock on wood, who knows? Like obviously famous last words or whatever, but we'll probably talk more about that next week. So yeah.
I'm just imagining next week us like going, oh my God, it's so much more difficult than you would think to do this. Like here's all the problems we ran into. I mean. It's crazy.
We'll splice out the audio from this one and we'll put it into next week's episode. And just like these guys were they were so naive.
All right, so that's all we have for this week. Tune in next time. What adventures will we go on?
That's really good. I like it.
Right? All right.
What adventures will we go on next week?
All right, so I'm Chase McCarthy.
And I'm Jonathan Jackson.
And I didn't do any of the Twitter stuff or the look at our feed.
You can do it now. It's fine. Yeah.
All right, so don't forget to subscribe to our feed.xml on your podcast reader of choice. And you can ask questions to us, and obviously we respond to them on Twitter at...
Oh, obviously we respond to them.
Well, we just did.
Well, that wasn't to Ember Weekend. That was to my personal Twitter.
No, well, I pinged both of us. You're right. So either ping Ember Weekend, all one word, or Code for Fun, or Rondale_SC.
Underscore, yes.
Yes. Okay. So
it's only dash sometimes.
Right. Any of those will work. They're all alias to the same person, basically.
Yeah, and the 4 in Code for Fun is binary. So.
No, you gotta figure that out. It's a puzzle.
It's a puzzle. But yeah, we will be back next week. So tune in. See you then.
See you next week.